I call the Honourable Member Sua William Seo. Talofa lava.
Talofa lava, Mr. Speaker. I want to say to the member who just spoke, is this it? Is this all we have? That on this Thursday we're debating plumbers and drain layers and gas fitters? Is that all there is from this government? So, what about unemployment? What about unemployment? What about the 16% of Pacific Island people? It wouldn't be so bad if we were talking about injecting money to create more jobs. Wouldn't be so bad if we're injecting money for the education of young people so that we'd have more plumbers and drain layers and gas fitters. But is this it? Sir, I say that because earlier this week we had a petition of people, boxes and boxes of thousands of petitions signed by over 390,000 people who are saying to this government, stop the sale of assets. And yet, on Thursday, instead of debating that, we are having to debate plumbers, gas fitters and drain layers amendment bill. And I'd say, sir, I think it is the wrong priority for this minister to introduce. It may be important and it may be necessary, but insofar as the New Zealand public are concerned, this is not the priority. This is not the priority. So, as my colleague Raymond Hoare has outlined, look, it's unfortunate that the Plumbers, Gas Fitters and Drain Layers Act of 2006, after so long, now requires amendment in order to correct some anomalies that have occurred. And I suppose, look, to be fair, the board protects the health and safety of the public by regulating and ensuring the competency of persons carrying out sanitary, plumbing, gas fitting and drain laying work. And the board is funded entirely by the fees and levies charged for plumbers and gas fitters and drain layers registered under this Act. And it's very similar to other occupational licensing boards. But the board made a mistake. The board made a mistake, sir, and whilst I'm not a member of that particular select committee, I have to ask, why was it that the board did not recognise the mistake that they've made, and instead, if it were not for the vigilance of the Regulations Review Committee, who in 2011 picked up on what had occurred and concluded that the board appeared to have made an unusual or unexpected use of the levy power, it would not have been picked up, I suspect. And so, insofar as Labour is concerned, there are some issues, sir, in this bill that we have reservations about. But we will support this to the Select Committee stage because I think the Select Committee stage is probably the more appropriate place for those who are directly going to be affected by the bill, those who are in this industry, all other interested parties, to raise their concerns, raise their questions, and to allow members of that Select Committee to critique and analyse and make appropriate recommendations with regard to making sure that the bill achieves its particular purpose. I understand, sir, that the purpose of the bill is to get rid of the uncertified practitioners in the industry. I'm sort of surprised that whilst collecting monies from the plumbers, gas fitters and drain layers solely for the purposes of prosecuting them, that the board also started using this particular money to prosecute those who are not registered. Now, that is of concern.
Well, it's every other profession does that. Architects do it, electrical workers do that. This only brings them into line with everyone else.
Yes. So I understand that the board imposed a disciplinary levy to fund the enforcement of their activities against those who breached the law, but they went outside that breach and began to then also look at those who are not registered. So I think it is a good thing, sir, that we do bring in and ensure that the industry maintains its credibility It is about ensuring that the public, New Zealand public, are protected from, and we see it on television time and time again. I think I've had some dealings in my own personal situation where one plumber has come in, carried out some work. A few months later, I've had to call another plumber, and that particular plumber raises the fact that they're using the wrong materials. And so in terms of making sure that we've got protection for our consumers and our communities, I think that's particularly important. I think what needs to be made clear, though, that Labour is not uncritically sanctioning the board's conduct, where it acted ultra-vires or beyond the scope of its levy power. Rather, I think it's going to be particularly important that this goes to Select Committee stage, and that anybody and everybody who has an interest in this ought to be given that particular opportunity to do so. In essence, one thing that really I have difficulty, and I made this point earlier, is that this bill, what it does is it makes actions that were previously thought lawful and have since been found unlawful, and now we're trying to make them lawful again. And there are some other cases around this country that I think will cause some serious concerns in local communities. I think, sir, that I think the work that the Regulation Review Committee did when it first considered the Plumbers and Gasfitters and Drain Layers Board Fees notice in 2010, that ought to be commended. Committee considered the board had made an unusual and unexpected use of the levy power in section 143 of the Act, as the board used the disciplinary levy to fund enforcement action against non-registered persons. I note that section 143 provides for the board to set a levy to fund only the cost of complaints and discipline in relations to registered person. I also note that the disciplinary levies validated from the 1st of April 2007 to 31st of March 2008 inclusive is $25. Now look at how this quickly picks up. From 1st April 2008 to 30th July 2010 inclusive, it becomes $50. And then from 31st of July 2010 to 11th of January 2012, it's $266. I think those who are in the industry and those who are practicing their craft, I would call on all of those organisations to make sure they have a say, because I think that they would be seriously concerned about the quick movement of those particular levies, particularly when there is such high unemployment currently in our country, and that despite the job opportunities that this government attempts to spin the media with, the fact remains that we still have high unemployment. It is the highest in 13 years. In fact, for Pacific communities, it is 16%. But as I said to you, sir, is this all that this government has for us to debate? Is this it? That despite the worst, despite the worst economic history in 51 years, we are here tonight debating Plumbers, Gasfitters and Drain Layers Amendment Bill. And I think, sir, the public listening into this will be saying to every member of that government there, is this what we put you in there to do? Is this to twinkle around these plumbers and gasfitters, these little things that the board itself should have taken care of? Instead, sir, we're here at Thursday debating this when there are more serious issues of families struggling to make ends meet. This government should have made that the priority rather than plumbers, gasfitters, and drain layers. How sad is that for this Parliament to be debating this when there are so many people looking to them for leadership, and I think that they'll be very, very disappointed, not only in this minister, but in their entire government on that particular side.